In continuation to my previous lecture on the theory of natural selection, so further I would like to talk about a little more about this particular theory. So the four main principles are there, which contribute towards the theory of natural selection given by the Darwin. So number one is the variation. So variation in populations, they are basis for natural selection. So as you can see from this particular image here, that there are a lot of insects are shown, and all the insects, their color of the cute back is different. So these kind of variations, they are the process of one of the processes of natural selection. So it is quite possible that the organisms, a different kind of organisms living in different environmental conditions, they may adapt to the environment and they may develop different kind of variations. And it is also possible that the organisms which are living in the same environment, which are getting same kind of natural resources, there also they may get some little variations, as it is evident from this particular image here, that the organisms here, although they are very closely related, but their back cover is a little bit different. So this variation, it could be one of the major contributing factors towards the natural selection. The second comes the overproduction. So some of the organisms, they produce more offsprings than will survive. So now let's imagine that if the natural resources are limited, space, water, sunlight, if they are limited and the number of organisms which need to survive on them are huge. If the number is large, then definitely there will be competition between them for the food, for the space, for the sunlight. So if they are competing amongst themselves, it is quite obvious that those organisms which are weaker, they will be wiped out. So only those organisms which are strong enough or which can fight with the other organisms, they can only survive. So in a way, overproduction also contributes towards the theory of natural selection. So the third point is the adaptation. So some adaptation, they allow organisms to survive at higher rate, and individuals are naturally selected to survive and produce offspring. Now it is possible that although the organisms are given similar kind of environmental condition, so in them, some they could be surviving better. Some they may not be surviving in a better way. So this better survival instincts of individual organisms are kind of naturally selected. So these organisms are naturally adapted to survive and produce their offspring. So now if a fitter organism is surviving and producing the next progeny, so it means the next progeny will also be fit in order to survive in those environmental conditions. The fourth point is the descent with modifications. So over time, natural selection will result in species with adaptations that are well suited for survival. So different environmental conditions, they could lead to different kind of modification in the similar kind of organisms. So this is one of the very popular examples from the Darwin's theory, with the one of the common ancestors is the finch. So this finch was the South American mainland. Now this finch moved to different islands on the Galapagos Island. So now on the Galapagos Island, because of the availability of the food, so you can see here that we have warble finches, tree finches, ground finches. Now they are feeding on different kind of food. Some are seed eaters, some are cactus flower eaters, some are bud eaters, and some are insect eaters. Now, depending on what kind of food is available, on what kind of food they are surviving. So they have adapted, their beak has been modified. So if you compare all these images with the one which is at the bottom, the beak is quite small. Now, depending on what kind of food they are feeding, their beak has been modified. So in a way, one can say that over time, the natural selection will lead to the modifications. And these organisms which are having different kind of modification, they are well suited to survive on the different Galapagos Islands. Now those islands, they are offering different kind of food availability. Now this food availability is leading to different kind of modifications into those organisms. Okay, so this is one typical example here. So you can see here, so we have two different kind of butterflies or moths, these are moths. So here we have one which is the black in color, another one is the white in color. So now here one can see, and this is white here and black here. So before industrial revolution, so when before the revolution took place, there was less pollution. So now because of that less pollution, less soot was there in the countryside. Soot means the black kind of smoke or the dust that would settle on the tree's bark. So because of the lower exhaust or waste product coming from the industries, the environment was quite clean. So the bark of the trees was white. It was quite clean. So at that particular, so these organisms which are having white color of wings, they could easily survive. At that particular time, it was difficult for the black colored moth. Now this black colored moth could easily be identified because of the contrasting background. So those birds which are feeding on these moths, they could easily predate the black moth, but they could hardly find the white moth. So because of the camouflage property, they could escape the predation. However, the black moth could be easily predated. Now, depending on the industrial revolution, now more and more pollution, more and more smoke is coming out of the industries. Now it has changed the background of the tree barks. So initially it was white, now it has become dark in color. Now because of the dark in color, now you can imagine, now it is easy for the black colored moth to hide. The white color moth will be revealed. So now the birds will predate on the white moths. So this is a kind of thing is happening in the countryside. So now if the moths need to survive, then they need to adapt to the environment. So initially there was an adaptation in the white moths, they were surviving better, and now the black moths are surviving better. Now if the white moth needs to survive, it needs to adapt. Or you can say that initially the white moth was fit to survive there, and now here the black moth is fit to survive. So fitness is what? Fitness is the measure of ability to survive and produce more offspring relatives relative to other members of a population. So if the individuals have more chances of survival. So here you can look here that we have this black and white kind of moth, and here we have this dark background moth. So if we have a white background, so this white or black color kind of moth will easily hide. The dark black moth will be revealed. However, at the different kind of background, at the contrasting background, the white moth will be revealed and the dark moth will be hiding. So those organisms which are more fit to survive in those conditions. So here we can say that when the background is white, the fitness level of the white moth was more as compared to the black moth. However, when the background color changes from white to dark background, so now the fitness level of the dark moth is more as compared to the white moth. So natural selection acts on the existing variation. So whenever there is pressure, the environmental pressure onto the organisms, it only acts on the phenotypes. So in this particular image, you can see this is image of typical crab image. So in this crab, you can see that the tentacles and the claws, they are well developed. So these tentacles and the claws, they are developed in order to grasp food, in order to capture food. So however, if we look into the genotypic of this particular organism, that would be the same as compared to its ancestors. So the environment had made it to change in order to survive better. So some of the traits they have come up because of the environmental pressure or because of the natural selection. And those traits they could have developed only which are beneficial for the organisms. So those traits which are not beneficial, they are usually not developed. Or those organisms which are having traits which doesn't facilitate the survival, those organisms they are wiped off. So there are several kind of evidences which Darwin could gather. So there are different kind of sources which are available. So he managed to travel around the world and he collected several samples. So some of the samples which he collected were from the fossils. So the fossils, they say that there was a descent with modifications. So he could correlate that the fossils of different organisms, so here you can see the fossil of a fish, and here you can see one of the snails. So the fossils, they were looking similar to the existing organisms, however, but with different modification. So the basic structure of the organisms remains same. Those organisms which are better suited or which are having higher fitness, they could manage to survive for 100,000 years. So the basic skeleton, when you compare of the present time organisms with the fossils, we could say, we could come up with the conclusion that the organisms have descended from which particular ancestors. And that descendants, they have better modifications. They are better suited to survive in the environment. So geography also plays a very important role. So Darwin realized that finches found in the Galapagos Islands closely resemble those found on the mainland of South America. So what he speculated was that the some of the organisms, so look at this particular one here, so some of the organisms in the South America, they could have migrated to the Galapagos Island. Now, those birds which have migrated, they could have been separated onto the different islands. So it is quite possible. So some of the birds, they would have landed on the island A and some could have landed on island B. So now we can see that there is a separation of populations. Now, with time, there is change in the gene pool. So the size of the seed or the availability of food, it would dictate that what would be change in the size of the beak. So the population here with which are having, which needs to feed on the seeds, they tend to develop a different kind of beak. So now there could be reproductive isolation. So those organisms which are already on different islands, so there could be migration of one organism, one kind of finch from, let's say, island B to this island A. So now these two finches, they could reproduce and they could population, they could have a different population. So now next would be the ecological competition. So as the birds, their number keep on increasing, so there may be competition amongst themselves. So that would force the birds to move to new islands. So they will move to different locations now. Now again, at different locations, now they'll have evolution, which is something similar to what they were having on the, sorry, this third one, where the availability of the food. So this kind of separation and then coming closer and then again separation results in the evolution of the traits. So this is kind of affected by the geography. So over time, new traits became well established in separate island populations. So the different environment on each island led to specific adaptation in diet, habit, and beak shapes. So here you can see from this particular image here, the different kind of finches surviving on different kind of food, they have different kind of beaks. However, their original ancestors, which were the seed ground eating finches, they remain there. These birds, they share the common ancestors. The next one is that the evidence they come from the embryology. So similarity in the embryo show a relationship between organism and possible common ancestors. So if we look at this particular image here, so what we see is that this is the embryo of a lizard, this is of a tortoise, this is of a pig, and this is for a human. So now if we remove this particular two rows, then here it is very difficult to identify that which embryo belongs to which organism. So in a way, we can say that the embryos, they show close resemblance. So it is possible that the organisms, they may share some kind of common ancestors. Now, if we look at the cell stages, so in sea urchin, the cleavage, we have two cells, then we have morula, blastula, gastrula, and the larva. So frog and the humans also, if we look at the pattern, so we may have cleavage of cells followed by morula, then we have the blastula and the gastrula stage. So if you look at this blastula and the gastrula stage, it is very unlikely that we may be able to identify the organism that whose embryonic stage is this particular embryonic stage. So which gastrula belongs to which organism. So here there is a similarity at the developmental level of the cells, similarity at the embryonic level. So which also suggests that there could be similarity in the common ancestor. These different kind of organisms, they might be sharing some common ancestors. Then some of the evidence they could come from the anatomy. So some of the Darwin's best evidence came from comparing body part of different species. So here, look at this particular example here. So here we have the homologous structures. So here it is a structure of a penguin, and here we have a alligator, we have bat, and the humans. So these we call as the homologous structures because these are similar in structure but have different functions. So penguins, they use it for swimming. Here alligators, they use it for walking. Similarly in the bat, these forelimb is used for flying. However, in human it's used for grasping things. So although the basic structure of the forelimb remains the same in vertebrates, however, the function is different. So even the structure of, if you look at the structures here, the hand of the human, cat, whale, and bat, this again, the arrangement of the bones is also a similar kind of thing. So these homologous structures, they are architecturally or anatomically they are similar, but physiologically or function wise they are different. A similar example could be seen here also. So these are the typical examples of leaf. So here in the pitcher plant, the leaf is modified into pitcher to catch insects. Here in the Venus flytrap, so the leaves are modified into jaws to catch insects. And here in the poinsettia, the bright red leaves resemble some kind of flower petals. And in the cactus, they have become spines. So although the basic structure remains the same, but different modifications and different functions are there. Then the second one is the analogous structures here. So structures that perform similar function but are not similar in origin. That is the wing of bats and the insects. So in the insects, the wing is it's a different organ, and here it's a forearm. So structurally, anatomically, if we see, they are different. However, their function remains the same. They both are used for flying in the bat as well as in the insects. So structure patterns, they are clues to the history of species. So some of these structures which could be used at the initial times, but now they are not being used. So we call them as the vestigial structures. So they seems to lack any useful function that had a function in earlier ancestors. So initially it is possible in the ancestors, it is possible that they might be having some kind of role. So because of the availability of the natural resources, or the overall changes in the environmental conditions, now these organs have lost their use. So example of vestigial structures found in many organisms, for example, in the humans, we have this appendix. So the appendix, it is kind of, it's a vestigial organ which doesn't have any role. However, in some cases, it has been heard that this appendix could lead to some kind of problems, infections, and it can easily be removed. Now, this appendix, which is also called a vermiform appendix, this is found in the kettles also. So those kettles, they are feeding on cellulose. So they can digest that cellulose. However, in humans, we are unable to digest that cellulose. There's similar kind of thing is wings there of ostriches. So in ostrich, wings are there. However, they are kind of vestigial. They don't fly. They just walk using those organs. So now there's evolutionary, what is the evolutionary biology here? So we have fossils that also provide a record of evolution. So one of the branches called the paleontology. So here is the study of fossils or the extinct organism. So nowadays, and even at the time of the Darwin, so people were studying, they were roaming around here and there in the search of fossils. So fossils, they kind of show evidence in form over time. So it is possible that some 400, 500 or 1000 years ago, some of the organisms, they would have buried under the soil. Now, with the temperature, time and pressure, they would have been fossilized. So once we discover those kind of fossils, then we can correlate their structure with the present time of organism. So in a way, evolutionary biology can be justified using the fossils. So every now and then, new fossils they are discovered. So once we have a new fossil, then it is possible that this fossil could act as a gap filling substance between two different organisms. So molecular and genetic evidence also support the fossil and the anatomical evidences. So initially it was that people were looking at the anatomical and the structural aspect only. But now we have science and technology advancement where we can look at the chromosome levels. So if you look at this particular image here, so this is the chimp chromosome which has 24 pair and the humans, they have 23 pair. So in a way, we can say that the number of chromosomes and the similarity in the pattern of chromosomes are compared. So humans, they are closely related to the chimps in terms of number of chromosomes and the structure of chromosomes as well. Now we have a new technology which is called the DNA sequence analysis. So now by using different kind of tools, let's say on PubMed and NCBI, we can match the DNA sequences. So we can do a blast and we can, and there's huge database of different organism sequences. So now we can match the sequence of different organisms and we can find out the similarity. What is the similarity of different organisms? How organism A is related to organism B. So depending on what is the similarity in the DNA sequence, one can find out what the organisms are closely related or the organisms are not related. Okay, so pseudogenes. So these are genes that no longer function. So similarity in the organism suggests common ancestors. So it is quite possible there are some genes which were earlier having some roles, but now we are not having any roles. So if we look at the whole architecture here, so we could find out that there are a couple of, let's say, unique non-coding DNAs which are not having any roles nowadays. Then we can have protein comparisons as well. So similarity in the proteins is found in specific cell types suggesting common ancestors. So if we could manage to find different kind of proteins which are in different kind of cells, that also suggests that one would have a common ancestors. So now we can, in a nutshell, now we can come to the conclusion that anatomically, physiology, looking at the structure of the organisms, one can find out the correlation. And now with the advancement of science, the protein, the DNA sequence or the gene, the C genes and the chromosome sequences, they can also be correlated. So one can find out that what is the correlation with the proteins, what is the correlation of the DNA between different organisms. So now, depending on the presence of protein or DNA, the similarity index, one can say that they might be having some kind of common ancestor. So in the conclusion, we can say that the evolution unites all fields of biology. The reason we say is that the new discovery and tools help to study mechanisms of evolution. So almost all the branches of science, let's say the anatomy, physiology, molecular biology, genetics, those kind of physiology and pathology as well. So those they can be used in order to come to the conclusion, in order to study what is the evolutionary pattern. So different kind of branches of science coming together, they are used to investigate the evolutionary process.